And now we move on to our next panel discussion on the topic of the rise of women in Indian real estate, Women Up. This will be moderated by Mr. Sunil Mishra, Chief Strategy Officer, Anarock Group. Mr. Mishra has overall 25 years of experience in building businesses across telecom, BFSI, online startups, and now real estate. His experience spans various fields like sales and marketing, private equity, management consulting, and business analysis. Mr. Mishra has authored a book, Return to the Hypotenuse, Poetry in Math and Science, and is an avid marathon runner. And on the panel, we have Ms. Archana Hingurani, who is the managing partner, CII Capital. Dr. Hingurani has over 30 years of experience in asset management business. In her formative years, she helped create a new company and raise resources focused on oil exploration, a first for India. We also have Gitanjali Mirchandani. Ms. Mirchandani is the managing director and head of origination for JM Financial Limited. With over 15 years of experience in lending to the real estate sector, Ms. Gitanjali Mirchandani has worked with organizations like ICICI Bank and Kotak Mahindra Bank and has been instrumental in setting up the real estate leading lending business in JM Financial. We also have with us Ms. Reza Sebastian, President Residential Business for Embassy Group, with over 18 years across brand management, marketing, and sales, spanning diverse industries such as retail, real estate, FMCG, and ITITES. At Embassy, Ms. Sebastian heads the residential business and is part of the senior leadership team. We have been also joined by Ms. Sangeeta Prasad, who's the Group Chief Executive Officer for Ranwal Group. Ms. Prasad is a driven and passionate leader with 30 years of experience and pedigree to manage a large business through a strategic mindset with operational and execution excellence. As the Group CEO for Ranwal Group, she currently manages a business of over 3,000 crore rupees in the residential, commercial, and retail segments by leading a team of over 500 employees. So I would now request Mr. Sunil Mishra to take over the discussion and the panel discussion, please.
Thanks, Pushkar, for the slightly indulgent introduction, at least for me. It's my pleasure to be moderating the session and discussing with this impressive set of panelists. So, in this panel of women leaders sit some who have interviewed me in the past for leadership roles in their team, some who are doyens of the private equity investment scene in a company I worked for, and yet others with dream jobs that I would have coveted to have. So a bit intimidating for me, but we need to have a discussion, and thankfully I'm here to listen and learn more. So with that context fairly set, let's set the ball rolling. As usual, since I have control of the microphone, I shall start off with a 2 to 3 minute context on the topic of women leadership. I shall take the broader global context, then move into India, then into real estate step by step. So what I shall do is I shall share three separate instances slash statistics. First of all, I found an interesting HBR article, like where else would that be? Two researchers who had done a comparative study of women leaders and male leaders in 2019. 2019 obviously means pre-COVID, so just note that. They spoke with about 60,000 leaders globally and rated leaders on a set of 19 competencies. So the weighted average 19 competency index for male leaders came out as 49.8, and those for women leaders came at 53.1, a full 3 points more than male leaders. So they repeated this study on a smaller base in early 2021. 2021 again between COVID, right, in the COVID time. So the index for male leaders had increased from 49.8 to 51.5, right? Leaders thriving in crisis and all that. However, the effectiveness of women leaders increased from 53.1 to 51.5 to 57.2, a whopping 6 points ahead of men. So fantastic study and fantastic stats. And these guys, they talk to 60,000 people. So it has to be true. The base is big. So women leaders outshone men leaders by 3 points pre-crisis, in crisis by 6 to 7 points. So that's the first stat that I thought I should share with the entire audience. a statistic close home, which is Anarock residential business, since I look at all the data and statistics there. So we have a rich DE&I index, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion index, with 30% people in the sales team being women. However, among the top 30-member leadership team, there are only 3 women leaders, which is 10%. And then the final silver lining outcome, the positive twist, is that in FY21, these 3 women leaders accounted for 25% of total revenue. So the story goes like this, and this is actual data that I have, and I'm sort of sharing it here. The final and the third piece of stat is a bit of a damning stat. After all these competency index and clear-cut business case built for women leaders and employees, the fact of the matter is that of the Fortune 500 companies, there are only 40 women CEOs in the list, right? So 8%. Similar stats of Fortune 100 companies in India. So while there are 8% women leader in global Fortune 500, there are 4 women CEOs in Fortune 100. There are 5, one of them resigned in October. So the Steel Authority India, Indian Bank, Lupin, Stanchart, possibly data might be dated a bit, but give or take 1 or 2 CEOs around here. So that's the 3 stats which I thought I should set the context of it. So after all these ups and downs, the statistics and research work, let's hear from the heroes of the session, the Fantastic Four, and their learnings and lessons that they could share with us. So let's set the ball rolling. And I'm proposing 4 to 5 areas of discussion. I'll be pulling in 2 to 3 sort of leaders for each topic. There are a couple of topics where I would request all 4 of them to chip in. So without much ado, let me jump on to the first one, which is almost a bit of a warmer topic. So the question that I'm going to pose to all 4, and possibly I'll go in an order, Archana, followed by Sangeeta, followed by Riza, and followed by Gitanjali. That roughly how's the journey been through corporate life? Like, did you have any specific 1 or 2 instances wherein you had to consciously lean in more or work harder to navigate the situation than what a male leader would have done in that situation? Can I sort of request Archana to set the ball rolling, please?
Yeah. Thanks, Sunil. That was all the stats have been out there for quite some time, so these are not new, and we all keep chipping away at it. And I think situations have improved, but clearly there is a huge gap, right? So, if you say, well, what's your corporate life journey? Do you have instances? Quite honestly, I mean, I'm a from the 90s is where my career started, mid 90s. I don't think there was so much thought process as to do you need to lean in, do you not lean do you need to lean in. I think it was more about doing your best and moving forward. And I think to India's credit, there were many, especially in the financial sector where we all come from, there were many institutions that were open-minded about it. That's not to say that there weren't instances where you would have to push a little bit more, but I think very similar to the global world, there have been, I'm sure, in every career, male or female, there are a lot of instances where you have to lean in, and some of them maybe are more common. For women especially, maybe the ones that are coming back into careers, or the ones that are trying to push forward. Yes, there are many instances. One thing that stands out for me, I think, is that over time, and this is all thought process, because you brought up this question, I wouldn't have thought of it otherwise, that I think that in situations, at least from my experience, where women tend to give more compared to the people around them. And mind you, it's always a comparative to all the people around you. It's not that you're the female and therefore you're being compared, not being compared, you are competing, or not even competing, you're working in a group where you're the female, right? And I think I've seen many women do it, that they do a whole lot more as versus let's say some of the guys on the team who may be of equal stature, but you'll see that happening a whole lot more. And sometimes that leads you to then start saying that this is different for me versus the others. That's the only concept I think I struggled with over the years, in terms of having to see the distinction between myself and others. Otherwise, I have to honestly say that over so many years, there weren't that many instances where I felt that I was having to do this because I was female.
And that's great news. If working from 1990s, you didn't have really too many instances staring in the face. So well done. And we all have been through the whole ICICI Bank group of 8-10 women leaders, which sort of spawned and made women leadership so believable. Well done,
Yeah.
Sangeeta. You want to sort of add to that, please?
So Archana, I come from a totally different world, and I've been fortunate. I've been in a man's world, um, literally and metaphorically, being in Tata Steel, which is a very, very man-driven world. And but I had a lovely time there, and I will only enunciate my experience through some humorous incidents. So one was when I was the branch manager of Delhi, nice place to be in the mid 90s, selling steel and tubes. If you are selling steel and tubes in North, you can do anything anywhere. So that, as I say, I've been very fortunate in doing these things. And I remember many a times people would call me on the then landline and ask me, किसी को technical आदमी को लगाइए ना मैडम, आप नहीं समझेंगी. तो मैंने कहा कि ओके, मैं भी टेक्निकल हूँ. नहीं, कोई बात नहीं मैडम जी, टेक्निकल आदमी को लगाइए. सो आई बिलीव that was a nice way of humbling myself and saying, okay, when you have such situations, treat with humor and then make your presence felt with the knowledge and the capabilities you have. So that's one. So it's not because the men meant it otherwise, because they didn't know any other. So treat them with respect and a little bit of indulgence and humor, and that has worked very well for me, whether in all during my career. Sometimes I know it sounds cheeky, it's good to let the other person think he's smarter than you, and I can tell you it works very well. So to all the men and women out there, it's always good to be a giver than a taker. That's been my experience during the last so many years I have worked. And I would just give another example of the strength of upbringing. So I grew up in Calcutta, where I think inclusivity was organic. No one actually made you feel you are different. So I was as boy or as girl. And sometimes I believe that we are all androgynous beings. It's how we manifest ourselves makes us what we are. So I just thought I'll share this, the humor part of it. Treat with indulgence, be respectful towards others, and make your presence and your point felt with a lot of respect, and then people will hover around you. It doesn't mean, as Archana said, that we haven't faced anything negative, but it is also for us to therefore stand up. And the other thing I would like to say is, standing up is then and there. Don't wait for another day, because that's when you set expectations and boundaries.
Fantastic, Sangeeta. So well said. And yes, I was scrolling through your LinkedIn, and through engineering in Jadavpur University to IIM Lucknow to Tata Steel, like you've sort of really gone that route, and I'm sure you would have had fantastic experiences in that. Well, then thanks a lot. Riza, do you want to pick up from there and add to that, please?
Yeah, so hi and very warm welcome to all the viewers. Thanks, Sunil, for getting all of us together. I've done panels with both Gitanjali and with Sangeeta. I speak to Sangeeta otherwise as well. And very nice to meet you, Archana. The way, I've looked at this question is that, for me, getting back into real estate. So I've done stints in IT, I've done stints in FMCG. And I opted for this career almost 17 years ago. Traditionally, real estate, I would say, has been family-dominated businesses, largely promoter-led and largely male-led, like to attribute to what Sangeeta said. But it was almost like a decade ago when the chairman of Embassy Group is Mr. Jitu Virvani. Actually, he completely pushed me out of my comfort zone and entrusted me with the responsibility of heading the residential division. So it was a tremendous show of support and belief in my capabilities. I'm sure there were many naysayers. It was also a time when the company was re-strategizing its entry into the residential space in 2010. It had run a bull run with commercial from the year 2005. So we had about 6 million square feet to launch, and it required long hours, travel, meeting, conversations with multiple stakeholders. So he was taking a leap of faith with me. Historically in the company, that position of the head of residential was occupied by men historically. So at that time, my children were small. They were only 3 years of age. I have twin girls. And it was always about, if I grab the opportunity, would it be that I'm choosing work over family? So it required a lot of conversations, both with my boss and with Mr. Jeetu Vilwani himself on his expectations for the role, how I can be successful in aligning myself to this vision. Also, I think my husband played a very strong part in all of this, right? So we had to sit down and discuss how we're going to manage the children, the housework, what are the changes and the challenges that we would be facing. So when it comes to leaning in, I think for me, it is the fact that it's about shifting weight, right? How can you delegate even if you don't need it? So for me, if you show the intent to an organization, regardless of which industry you are in, regardless if you have small children, they will see that. And it's about making and partnering with people around you and creating the right kind of network to make it happen. And I believe that the support I have received over the years from within the organization, from within the family, has been incredible.
Fantastic story, Riza, and I can assure there's no leap of faith in that decision. The decision maker for all homes sold are women, so it's just common sense that the head of the digital business would sort of benefit the business. Well done, fantastic story. Gitanjali, you want to round that up with your personal experience, please?
So hi everyone. So yeah, it's not been as long as Archana and Sangeeta, but in the short 16 years of my work life, I think, and it's been Ari all along since the time I joined ICICI Bank. We all had stars in our eyes, looking at Chanda and all of that, all the female leaders stopped, and we all dreamed that we'd be there at some point in time. So I think taking from what Riza said, the most important and critical part in my career so far has been the part when I joined back work post pregnancy, right after the maternity leave. I think there's a lot of inner battle. You obviously have to have your support system, so I won't repeat what Riza just said. But you can't take away the fact that at that point in time, you need to have everything, it's like a jigsaw puzzle and everything needs to fall in place. Your bosses need to be supportive. Your family needs to be supportive. Your support system in terms of, if you're not available, who's there to take care, pick, drop, all of those things. So that's the time I actually needed to lean in a lot more, not only on my seniors, but my peers, right? We have to learn how to delegate responsibilities. You have to do everything that everyone else does in the 24 hours. And, you probably have to just shrink time. That brings out a lot of anxiety, a lot of emotional upheaval. That was the most difficult time in the career. The times when you actually think whether, you'll be ever able to achieve all of that you set out to achieve for yourself. I personally, at that point in time, believe that conversations are very necessary. We should learn to ask for help. Most of us don't do that, unfortunately. And I think there are people out there willing to support, willing to help. Asking for that help is extremely important. So that phase of my career, I think if I had given up at that point in time, there's no way I could have reached where I am today. So it's about being there, living through that, asking for help. And I'm sure after a few years, once your children grow up, once you settle down in a routine, things become much easier than they were when you started, more than when you started out. So yeah, that's my story.
Phenomenal. So the super working super mom phase is the toughest phase, obviously, and I think it sort of resonates across stories. And then asking for help, like it's such a simple sort of thing that you mentioned, which we should, and there's sort of no shame in that, in sort of acknowledging that we need help at some point in time, and that's true for all circumstances. Gitanjali, while you're here, and I sort of went that order. Next question, I'll just pull you back in, and Archana, and this is again that inverted pyramid question, and since you'll slowly realize I'm a data sort of man. So I'm looking at US real estate data. Now I'm sort of pulling it from global data to real estate data. At least Indian real estate data is not there. Surprise, surprise. But US real estate data, women form 25% of total workforce there as well. And we are talking realtors, and you see the stories and movies about realtors in the US happening. But if you move up the pyramid, 14% of company CEOs are women. So that's one stat. 25% the frontline workforce, 14% company CEOs. The second stat is that the women realtors in the US, the frontline realtors, earn 8% more than men. Right? Smart, showing apartments, sort of. Knowing what the customer wants, very important, and then selling more, and hence earning 8% more. But as the you move up the hierarchy, women leaders earn 30% lesser than men. So again, this whole sort of inverted pyramid, it's almost a paradoxical sort of a counter tilting of income scales, as one says. So any comments there? What's happening? And this is happening at multiple places. Gitanjali and Archana, Gitanjali, if you can go first, please.
Sure. So I think I'll take up from where I stopped, right? I mean, I think there is a phase where a lot, so the statistics, when you start, you have 25% of the workforce which are women, and when it goes up to the top, it shrinks to 13%. I think there is, because a lot of people give up on the way, right? It's a funny WhatsApp forward I saw the other day where, you know, the goal for the man and the woman is the same. But when you're running towards it, there are 15 obstacles that a woman needs to cross. You know, you have family, you have children, you have school, you have work, you have all of that, but the goal is the same. So I guess it's about at what obstacle do you decide to stop, right? And I think most of us, unfortunately, end up doing that. And there are only those 13% who feel it's worthwhile to cross. And also, I think as far as the salary disconnect is concerned of women on top, I think in general, I've realized when we negotiate, even with for women in my team, and you know, I should mention here, 55% of our real estate lending team is women, right? And that's a very very good number. I'm very proud of it, and I think the women are definitely doing very good work in an industry which is again male dominated. So even when they come to negotiating, I think women as negotiators tend to undermine their worth somehow. I don't know. It's just my feedback, because I've negotiated salaries with men and women who are part of the team. And I guess and probably that's one of the reasons why I feel that the salaries at the top are different for men and women. And it's more, again, about asking, about knowing what your worth is and asking that, boss, I think I deserve more. I think I'm worth more. I think we don't, as women, do that as much as maybe our male counterparts. That's the only reason I feel. Archana, over to you if you want to add.
So yeah, I absolutely agree. I have to say a story here. You know, I remember taking an MBA class where nobody really did anything, and the professor asked each one of us, what grade do you deserve? As the only female, and I said, well, because you really didn't ask us to do much, I think a B plus is the grade I should get. I was the only one who got a B plus. Everybody else got an A, because they all said that they should have gotten an A, right? So I think that inherent culture worldwide, it's not just about, you know, Asian women or anything like that. I think it's a natural. I think also, Sunil, people like Gitanjali mentioned, people do give up midway. So you're seeing lesser number of women at the top. I also think there is a lack of today, like for example, you were to ask me to search for, I specifically asked that until and unless you come back and tell me that there is no female available for this post, I will consider a male. Can you prove that to me? And we struggle because we don't find as many people at that level, right? As regards the difference in structures, I think even like I have enough examples in the US where not so long ago, even like 15-20 years back, if you left for a maternity break, when you came back, you were put back into a cycle because you had missed 1 year of growth, right? So you were not given the same job, you were asked to do something extra, etc., which put you back, which then naturally led you to either say, let me take care of my kids, or should I really worry about this, right? So I think Gitanjali is bang on all of these factors and some, you know, behavioral aspects, which I'm crossing my fingers will change, because I think as the newer generations of we as parents are probably bringing up children with more equal thought process, not about chores and whether you should be doing washing utensils versus changing tires, but also more about the thought process. I think if there is more of assertion introduced into young girls, I think we should be able to reach a place where we are not saying why are women so far behind, or why are men ahead of us. It would be more of an equal game. But till such time, I think there are all these differences that need to be sort of taken care of.
Yeah, sure. So the whole self-awareness thing that Gitanjali mentioned and you sort of repeated, and where does self-confidence stop and bravado in the male bravado sort of takes over? Where is that line one has to decide looks like? And the great point Archana mentioned was that this is changing, right? Even as also we are a 70-year-old country and almost a 35-year-old financial country after 1991. So things are changing, and I'm sure stats will keep on improving as we keep on working through this. Fantastic. Let me sort of move on to another topic where I'll pull in Riza and Sangeeta this time. And this is, I think Archana mentioned that about hiring women leaders. So on that topic, the question for you, Riza and Sangeeta, is that have you taken any specific steps in your corporate life to develop more women leaders? I know it's a rhetorical question, but I wanted you to speak about that more. Any specific instances worth sharing? Riza, you want to go first, followed by Sangeeta?
Yeah, Sunil, I think what has happened is COVID has actually set back this entire women empowerment significantly, at least by 2 decades, I would say. I mean, there's a lot of lack of support system, creches, daycares, and women through COVID, I think, has struggled to stay in the workforce. In some ways, I would say that women face the similar kind of challenges that are faced by men. Work-life balance, parenting, juggling many responsibilities. But really, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to recruitment, retention, and development. That's what I have realized over the years. Because what I have tried to do at Embassy Residential is to bring in a more gender balanced team rather than showing preference to any particular gender. So I have promoted individuals based on capability, and skill set, right? So it was never about is it the woman who's more worthy? It has been provided to the woman only if she has been able to prove herself in that role. So being able to provide equal opportunity for the men and women to succeed has been the mantra on which I have worked to promote leaders. When it comes to real estate specifically, there are no real leaders because real estate as a career was never an option for women. Women, at least this has just transformed in the last few years with the corporatization of the sector. The whole aspect has changed. Before that, it was never an option. So the ability to reach that leadership cadre for a lot of women has not existed because real estate was not an obvious career choice. So I have looked for ways that unconscious bias in the organization affects opportunities and figured out how to motivate women because, and make sure that they step up and choose the role that they're capable of. So present the opportunity, but be able to navigate conversations which helps them succeed in that role. So this is what I have done, Sunil.
Fantastic. Sangeeta, you want to carry on? Sangeeta, I think you're muted.
You're still on mute. Sangeeta, you're still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting that do you make a conscious attempt at hiring more women or hiring women out of preference? And I would like to do a high five with Riza on that yes, giving a level playing field. So what I mean is I hire a woman and what is the environment within is as important because that's when the woman kind of we nurture them and they do better. I would obviously not promote or do anything special or give priority to a woman if that woman is not capable. But I think in what is happening is as I've grown older, I've realized that creating an ecosystem is extremely important. It is in any society, the minority always needs a little nudge. I know it's a sensitive topic I'm touching there. We may have different views on the subject. But I think when in a room full of a certain kind of, so I believe I like you because you are like me is a very, very profound syndrome we find amongst many of us. And it's not about women, men, it's about anything. So how do we create an environment that I like you because you are not like me, or I like you irrespective because you are who you are, is something which I think is has to be deeply ingrained amongst all of us. And I'll give you one example. It's a very nice example. So I have from Mahindra, I have moved to Runwal. They're totally different environment. And can you believe it? In Mahindra, we used to make a lot of effort. I was chairing the group diversity council and so on and so forth, and trying to create processes and ecosystem. Here I come to Runwal, and I'm pleasantly surprised. There's no diversity council, but many of the HODs are women. So I'm just trying to present a contrarian view on how do you mainstream diversity. So how do you so at one end, yes, I believe that you need to create environment nurturing philosophies to have more women in the system. Or how do you mainstream it so that it does not matter? So it's a very subtle thing I'm bringing here, and both are important. Both are not mutually exclusive. So both need to work in tandem. So how do you mainstream diversity? I'll give you again an example. How do we as women react to a situation when we are told, आप फोटो में बीच में खड़े हो जाइए मैडम, फोटो अच्छा निकलेगा? So how do we respond? So it is also about women responding to situations and feeling, no, I am who I am. I've come here to contribute. And it's not necessary to stand in the middle of the picture. I can stand wherever I want. Please give me the choice of standing where I want. I'm not going to stand where you want me to stand. So, there are many interplays which work here. So how do we create empowerment for all? This women empowerment cell, we are giving too much fuss about it. And I think that's where also Riza was coming from. How do we mainstream? How do we yet create an environment where I don't feel that I am being treated differently? The only place where I will give, women it's a biological, the motherhood. That's biological, and women are bearing children not for themselves, for the society and for the family. So come off it, friends. Treat that with respect and dignity. That's all I would like to say. How do you create a good environment for working?
Fantastic, Sangeeta. Mainstreaming diversity is a topic of goosebumps, and one can sort of speak on this for a long time. And clearly, Riza, the topic was not to promote women leaders if they are not capable. So this obviously is a ceteris paribus sort of thing. Once they are capable, then why not sort of lean in a bit? And I got that. It's sort of it works both ways. So there is women reservation for seats in Lok Sabha, and there's some thought behind that. No one's trying to demean anyone else. So fantastic points, and sort of let's keep the ball rolling. This is good stuff happening. Again, a slightly broader topic where I would like all four of you to chip in. And I think time-wise, we have about 7-8 minutes more. So we can hit 2 topics possibly, or one topic we'll just speak properly. On this is the sort of evergreen topic, and since we have got leaders here, we would love to, and there are a lot of young women leaders, women aspiring leaders in the audience. So some advice that you would like to give women professionals in this space, and within that to aspiring women leaders. And we can again sort of go possibly Gitanjali, Riza, Sangeeta, Archana, and that order, the reverse order, which start with the first one. Gitanjali.
So a few things I already said. Learn to ask for what you deserve. I think that is the most important thing. Know what you're worth. Don't get flustered and overwhelmed with reactions, which is the last thing which Sangeeta just said. There have been times when, I've been referred to, like, because I said we have a lot of women in the team. When we go and meet some of the developers without naming them in the north, they say, "Oh, madam, I think a frock pen ke us din unka naam kya hai?" So it's a natural reaction, but it's about you, how you react to that situation. You don't need to get flustered. There is a natural difference between a female leader and a male leader. There are times when internally the promotions which happen, maybe it's a raw nerve which gets triggered. You need to handle, you need to know what you deserve. You need to stand up for that yourself, and you don't need to get overwhelmed with the different phases that a woman goes through in her life, and just be there, be at it. And I'm sure we're all as good as men, if not better. So that's what I would say. And yeah.
No, the stats showed you are better, by the way.
Yes, efficiency wise. Well, I don't have any doubt about that. Yes.
Excellent. Riza, do you want to keep on carrying?
Sorry, I had muted myself. So, I mean, just to add on to what Gitanjali said, I would say just keep aspiring to be better. I think it's very important as women to pay attention to opportunities, even if you're concerned there are others in the ring who may get approached for the job before you do. I think it makes you stronger. It makes you better at negotiating. It's important to go up the ladder and not skip too many rungs. I think each step teaches you how to handle increasing responsibilities and stress. And I think for women, it's very important to seek out mentors and committing yourself to be a lifelong learner and network with those who have more experience. And very, very importantly, I think own your own success. I think women are generally very apologetic when it comes to talking about their success. And as women, I think, and all of us as leaders in our respective forays, I think it's important that we need to lead by example. So speaking out, being heard, and don't hold back.
Fantastic, bunch of pearls of wisdom, Riza, and the looking out at opportunities, grasping it. With some come through networking, and this I've heard in many forums that hey, there's the whole male thing going out and networking, etc. There's a stat there again. Sorry for the longer average tenure of women, by the way. So I have seen this in my companies and the companies I built, that women employees sort of the average tenure is 6 to 9 years versus 3 to 4 years for male. Possibly linked with that, grasping opportunities, and in Indian Senate means looking out for jobs. So
no, within the organization itself, I mean, it is really about
all new roles within the organization.
So you may be constrained at that point in time to perform a certain role, right? Or you feel that you're not ready for it, but take it on and you will learn as you go along.
Fantastic, great. Sangeeta, you want to keep on the good stuff rolling?
So the first thing, I totally agree with Gitanjali and Riza, really nuggets. The one thing I've seen is as I said, less women in the corporate world. What happens sometimes, we get overwhelmed. The first thing I would request every girl to do, and I'm using the word girl because I think all of us are girls fundamentally, is to have the youth in them. But the first thing is respect yourself, self-respect and self-esteem, not to be lost at any cost. That's my first particular advice, because sometimes we get overwhelmed and people try to push back, and we need to maintain that at any cost, because the more you give in, so don't give up, but you can let go at some circumstances, is my second piece of advice. So first is have self-respect. People gauge it very quickly. If they know that you respect yourself, in no sooner than that, they will start respecting you. Second, let go, trade off, but don't give up. And that's what I think some of us mentioned earlier, that how do you manage your life? How do you create pivots around certain things? And I know, Sunil, you mentioned about super women. No super. We are just there. We are at it. So please don't get carried away, girls, when anyone tells you you're a superwoman. We are as supermen, as the men are, as we are superwomen. So sometimes what happens, this indulgence which people treat all of us, be cautious of that. That may not be the right way to get carried away with. A head on your shoulders, a level head on your shoulders, be at it, treat others and yourself with dignity, and maintain in work life a certain distance. That has worked well for me, and I think these are some of the things which I have practiced, and I am sure some of these will work well for you. And I'll add the last one. I know all of you have said, but I want to repeat. I will advise all my friends, men or women and others, that be demanding of what you deserve. I have not done that in life. At times I've given up because I said, how can I go and ask for something? I'm not talking about work. Work, I've always been, as Riza said, sought opportunities, done risky stuff. But when remuneration comes, I feel very embarrassed There's no reason, and I think women feel more embarrassed than men. There's no reason to feel embarrassed. Don't do, this is something which I'll say, don't do what I have done. It has cost me dear, and I don't want others to do it.
Fantastic. And learning from experiences of others is a smart thing to do. So why not? So fantastic, Sangeeta. And I'll try to summarize it towards the end. Archana, you want to go next, please?
I don't want to add much. I think a lot has been said already, many things, but two things. One is what Sangeeta mentioned in her first answer, which was this constant feedback loop, right? It needn't be just with your superiors, because if you want to be a leader, you have to learn how to do that feedback loop with the people below you, so that as and when you're becoming a leader, you have the ability and support of the people who are, sitting beneath you to be able to walk the next walk. And the second thing, I think many people get overwhelmed. My mantra is, whenever I'm overwhelmed, I take that task and I split it into 30 tasks, and I keep doing it till I get to the main task. So those are the only two things I want to add, because everything else is, very well said by the others. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Sunil, sorry, if I may just add one last
Please,
point, which is very close to my heart. So, as also us as mothers of young children who are bringing up, I think the conditioning that we are giving our children, whether male or female, that's very, very, very important. If we need to break this cycle, till the time we keep continuing to have discussions like this, where we need to prove that, women, or I have a separate panel discussion saying that women on top, women, the rise of women, till you continue to have that, I think we still haven't achieved our goal. So I think that whole conditioning from an early age, whether it is for daily chores, whether what is a role of a man or a woman, needs to be made very, very clear to our children, so that we eventually end up breaking this at some point.
Fantastic, Isanya. So we are at 6:03. I think we will try to wrap up now. And I have been writing in the last 5-7 minutes. And with your permission, I'll put it on my blog as the points that I learned today. So fantastic nuggets of wisdom. So learn to ask, don't get flustered, keep aspiring to be better, right? You have to sort of keep on pushing yourself. Look at opportunities, go through rungs was a fantastic point which you raised. Have mentors. Self-respect, self-esteem, self-awareness kept on coming up, and this sort of looks like common sense, but has to be told and has to be sort of really executed. The trade-off / pivot point was fantastic, Sangeeta, but trade-off or pivot, but don't give up, right? So keep on sort of hammering there. No super thing, point taken. Everyone has to earn their spurs, and there is no sort of easy moniker given to anyone to make an easy life. And be demanding of what you deserve. Learn through self sort of lessons, and hopefully the listeners pick it up. Don't be overwhelmed. And I loved Gitanjali's point as well, that you have to be the change you want to make. So teach your children and sort of inculcate those values, which will see a full generational change. So fantastic, sort of bunch of learnings. My blog gets a blog post tonight, and with these 13, 14 learnings. Pushkar, it's 6:04. Is it time to call it a day?
Of course, Mr. Sung.
Sunil, you were very good. You were super.
Oh, great. Thanks. Thanks for that. Pushkar, over to you.
Yeah, so thank you, Sunil, and thank you, all the panelists, for their excellent inputs. And yes, we have made a note of all the inputs that you have given during the panel discussion, and we will definitely see through it.
Thank you,
thank you very
Sunil.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All the best.
Sunil, bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.